back, part two, seconds out, with Richard Sutcliffe, newly of The Athletic, the subscription website that's making great strides, and indeed, probably not too strong to say that it's revolutionising the media landscape, particularly where football is concerned. Chris Turner, the former Sheffield Wednesday player and manager, just realised I didn't give you your full introductory title.
And supporter.
And supporter. In part one, I just thought it went without saying. And Chris, with more discussion on Garry Monk and the way he started in the job. In fact, we might even kick off part two with that. No, we won't. We'll complete what Richard was saying at the end of part one about the Athletic, the concept, the fact that for you guys, and there's some really, you are part, there's some really
there's some big names, believe me.
Big names have been lured.
I'm a long way down the chain, don't you?
I was including you. You've got licence to do what is every journalist's dream, and that is pretty well to get every word that you write published.
Yeah, there's no longer, you know, you're on the computer as was at the Yorkshire Post, and you've got 800 words, and that's it. Anything over, you just get a sub saying, look, we don't have elastic pages, you know, it's go on. Whereas obviously the internet, that's infinite. You can just go and go. Obviously, you don't want to do too much because sometimes people can think, well, this is too long. Sometimes something deserves to be 800 words. But no, it's great. You just got that freedom to go out. You know, the other week going over to Fleetwood, I was saying to Chris earlier, just to see Paul Coops, have a sit down with him on the Thursday, and then go watch him on the Saturday and speak to Joey Barton a bit, and speak to people around the club, and I'd never have the chance to do that otherwise.
And to be freed from the paranoia of all journalists of, well, I might have missed something. Because they're not bothered about what you miss. They're bothered about what you get and your own observations, your own opinions as well, which is refreshing.
Well, when I started, obviously we're not hoping this doesn't happen, but they said, well, you know, if Chris Wilder leaves, you don't have to rush onto our website and put anything up to say he's left. You've just got to get on the phones, and in 5 hours' time, you give the definitive version as to why Chris Wilder's left. And like we say, we hope that doesn't happen for a long time.
I was going to say, do you know something?
No. I'm hoping that's a story I don't have to write for, well, at all.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, you know, anything, I'll say if they signed somebody for 25 million, 30 million, it wouldn't be a case of getting that up on the site. It'd be like, right, get around his old clubs, get around his old managers, speak to his old teammates, and give an impression of what the guy's like. That's the plan.
I get the feeling that people on the other side of the fence, as you've been as a player and manager, probably appreciate that sort of approach in journalism, rather than the bang smash, you know, big headline, you know, quotes led article. You've got some thinking there.
Well, I am a contributor to the Athletic, and I think it's very good. You can get your individual club that you want to get the news off that, and then there's a general pages as well for all general things in football. But you're right, Alan. It from a manager's aspect and from a player's aspect, is that it's good to sit down and read something that's not just, oh, they got beat 2-0 Saturday, there's a crisis at the club, and this, that and the other. The stories are built, around that, but it's not about just the reaction of a 2-0 defeat or who they're playing on Saturday and they haven't won for 6 games or 4 games, and it just brings everything else into about football, which fans, you know, I know they like to read the instant stuff, but real football supporters like to read stories about their club, and I think is it First Division and Championship and Premier League, every individual club's got an individual writer, and I think that's fantastic.
Okay, it's certainly succeeded, I think, so far. It's certainly made huge impact when everybody's aware of what it does, and this is Richard's. Well, it's got to be your dream job, isn't it? Really,
absolutely.
You know, you're following one club, and you've landed on them at the right time in the Premier League. You'll be going to Anfield. You've been to Goodison. You know, you've got the Liverpool game on Saturday. I haven't. I'm going down. It's such a big game. I'm not there this week. No, I'm always happy to get a game wherever. It just happens to be an early game, so it's TalkSport commentary. Yeah. So I'm going down to Derby, which I'm looking forward to, first time this season. Sheffield Wednesday and Garry Monk start in the job. Well, he's had everything. He's had a win, he's had a draw, and a defeat, albeit it's a Premier League team in Everton. Your assessment, well, as a fan?
Yeah, it's hard. because the season's well underway. He could he have brought him in earlier? I know they were giving Lee Bullen an opportunity, but you know, Garry's been available now since the beginning of the season, but he's in now, and it takes time, and I know people don't want to hear time and patience, and I think we said this on last time I was here about Steve Bruce, about in his time, in his patience, and quite rightly the same with Garry, because you know, it takes a manager to go into a club, especially now in your championships and certainly your premierships, where you're managing players that have still got 2 years and 3-year contracts with some players, and the Wednesday players, there'll be some that's going into next season. So Garry has to assess the players quickly, ready for the January window, to try and strengthen his team and his squad, and also assess which players longer term that he needs. At the same time, he needs to be getting results as well. It's hard, especially coming into a team that, as I say, with the season kicked off, but I believe that the squad at Wednesday is good enough to get them into the playoffs. If they can hit some form in the second half of the season, because that's the most important time of the season for playoffs, is the second half of the season. I don't think they've got a strong enough squad in terms of scoring lots of goals to be one or in the top 2 places of the league. But I certainly believe they could be challenging for the playoffs, and if Garry could get them into that, who knows? But you know, for Garry Monk, for me, it'll be 1.5 seasons before you flip everybody around that needs to be changed. His style of players brought into the club before you really get to see a manager's team, and we haven't had that at Hillsborough for a long time.
What do you see as his style of play, or is he simply adaptable and could say, well, this is this squad, this is the way I'm going to play?
Well, I think he's got to be adaptable to your players, because whatever players you inherit, which he is doing, you've got to adapt a style that suits them. This is what I'm saying is, before you see the Garry Monk style of play, you might slowly start to see it coming through, but until he's got a squad of players that he can trust and he knows, then that's when you'll see the Garry Monk style of football coming to the forefront. And I think that it takes time. But unfortunately, at Sheffield Wednesday, you don't get time, generally.
You know that.
And people want change when it's not going right. And that's why there's always a change around the managers. That's why we can never get a consistent run, a consistent squad of players that can make an assault on the top position of the championship in the last few years.
Through no fault of the club, though, that Steve Bruce, his time was so short.
Well, I think it was sad, because I think he was the most popular manager that Wednesday's had for a long time, and he you know, started off like a house on fire with the results. They tapered a little bit towards the end, but then the signings he was looking to bring in, but it took a long time to get those signings in. There's a problem with a soft embargo, which didn't enable him to get certain players that he wanted. But it's sad, because I mean, you know, I felt Steve would have genuinely given us a great chance of getting up, but you know, as I said earlier in this conversation, Alan, I just hope that Garry, when it comes round to January and the end of the season, that Garry can get on and do what he really wants to do, and is given that opportunity, because that's what a manager needs.
Yeah, he needs to shape the pieces, not only the ones that are coming in, but the ones that are going out.
Well, exactly. They're the most important people. The ones that need to be changed, who serve the team well, serve the club well. But you know, Sheffield Wednesday now have really got to be. You know, it makes it more pressure, because the way Sheffield United are in the Premier League, they've crept up to Wednesday and they've gone beyond them. Now there's a lot of pressure now for Wednesday. They've got to get up there with Sheffield United, and I think that there's got to be a turnaround of players at the end of the season, if we can't get up this season, to give us a chance of getting an assault and attacking the top of the league, and that's where the fans want to be, and that's where the club should be. But for me, the only way they can do that is to say, you're the manager, Garry, you go out and get us the players, you can get us a style of play, your responsibility is on with you, and we're going to back you. Yeah, that's what he needs.
And this is your budget, because, you know, a manager can't really change it unless he can move those pieces around. If money's tight, for instance, and it's not tight because of any lack of money from the owner, it's the financial fair play circumstances, isn't it?
They're still carrying big wages.
So a manager's got to look and say, I'm prepared to lose him, him and him. I might get that figure in, and with that figure I can get him and him. That's what a manager does, isn't it?
Well, you're wheeling dealing managers, and the thing is about
He's got to
the hardest thing for any manager is moving players on. They need somebody in there that can get those players moved on. And the valuations, I think, are rumoured to have been far, far too high. Steve Bruce wanted to move some players on, but the valuations were too high. You've got to let the manager. You've got to bite the bullet, because some of these players were brought in by other people, and they're deemed, or were deemed by Steve, and probably will be by Garry. They're not the ones that's going to get us into the top 2, top 3 to challenge for this championship. And once again, he's got to be allowed to say, that player there, we can get 2 million, 3 million for him. It's a good deal, and we'll go and get this guy from there, and that guy from there is going to give us the best chance of going where we need to go. Where unfortunately these guys, or that guy, they've been here 2, 3, 4 years. Their time's come and gone. We've got to move them on, and we've got to bring in fresh legs, fresh people, and fresh energy for the club.
It's no good hanging your hat on getting 10, 12 million for Fernando Forestieri, for instance. It's just not realistic,
You
is
ain't going to get it.
In the way the market's gone and the way his career's gone. So we'll see what happens there. You've seen Garry Monk at close quarters and worked with him at Leeds United. Did a pretty fair job there. They were around the playoffs, got in the playoffs 1 year.
No, they should have gone.
Should have gone.
I think there was about 8 points clear on April the 1st. But Fulham came through, one of the runs that Fulham come through with, and just pipped him in the end. They just ran out of steam a little bit. I think
your impressions of Garry as a manager and his style of football there.
I thought Birmingham, they were quite functional, but they were struggling as a club. They spent all that money, and he just had to go with what he had. Absolutely, I thought he did a great job down there. But it was quite functional. At Leeds, there was a much more an attacking element to it, and I think he'll bring that. He's got attacking players at Hillsborough, but it's just. Talking about transfer windows, it's not going to be January where he's going to sort this club out. It's actually going to be next summer.
You need 4 windows.
4 windows to turn it around.
To turn everything
Unless
around.
you can short-circuit it by somehow getting in the playoffs and getting up, that changes everything, doesn't it? If it's a short circuit. You mentioned about Chris Wood and his phenomenal goal scoring and the way that Garry Monk brought him on at Elland Road. We were talking before the show about when Sheffield Wednesday last had a 20-goal a season goal, and we were trying to rack in our brains since David Hurst, for instance.
Well, it was Mark Bright, wasn't they? Mark Bright got 20 goals, I think, one season, and certainly Steve McLean.
This was you signed?
I signed Steve McLean. We signed him from Rangers for 100,000, and in fact, Steve is still playing now up in Scotland in the SPL, and he scored yesterday.
Right, he must be knocking on now, mustn't
Well, he must be, but
a natural scorer.
He's a natural goal scorer, and that's what we need now. Somebody who's a natural goal scorer with a bit of pace.
Jordan Rhodes is there. There's no bigger natural goal scorer, or hasn't been in his career, than Jordan Rhodes. No. He's not getting much of a look in now. Stephen Fletcher's operating as a lone
striker. We're discussing earlier, and Stephen Fletcher works extremely hard and is very experienced. And if you put the ball in around 8-9 yards out, he'll get on the end of it and score like he did at Huddersfield. But we need somebody alongside him, and I think they need 3 strikers myself, who between them they're going to score 40 goals. That's what you need. What is the case? I mean, I don't know. Garry Monk sees players in training every day. He's only used Jordan Rhodes, I think, once. And that was a substitute the other night against Everton. Anybody looking at career records would probably say, right, I know what I'm going to do here. Stephen Fletcher and Jordan Rhodes as a pairing, based on. Is there some merit in that argument?
I saw a lot of Jordan at Huddersfield. He's got a lot of goals there. And then when he went to Blackburn, the team was built around him. The difference is at Sheffield Wednesday, there's been 5-6 strikers there, and they're all interchangeable. Nobody, everything was like Chris Wood at Leeds. Everything was geared towards Chris Wood, and that's why he got 30 goals. That's why Jordan Rhodes did so well at Huddersfield, and certainly at Blackburn. He was the main man. Everything was built around him. Sheffield Wednesday aren't going to do that with the strikers they've got, and that's why it's not worked for him.
No, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But they all play a part. I mean, Winnall looked good at Huddersfield, and then Atinuhu did well when he came off the bench, didn't he, last week? And got a great point against.
Well, he gets a lot of criticism, does Newey, but in the last 10-15 minutes of a game, he is a handful, and he's a different sort of player, and he's proved last Saturday he can score.
Yeah. Oh, that's a disgrace. The presenter's telephone should never ever
Should
go
be
off.
fine, that, Alan.
And do you know what? Do you know who that is? That is the fella who puts on the evenings with that I've started to do at Abbeydale in Sheffield. That's the organiser of those.
Clearly not tuning in, is he? That's
That's
not much of a vote of confidence, is it?
And we've got, by the way, a commercial. No, it isn't really. We've got Dave Bassett there on October. That was Jamie from Abbeydale. Some of you will know him. We've got Dave Bassett there on October the 16th, following up Ron Atkinson. And I've no doubt we'll have Chris Turner there.
Well, hey, always available. Alan.
Yeah, always available. Where were we going? What were we talking about? Jordan Rhodes.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to happen.
I mean, you just think Jordan Rhodes, Stephen Fletcher, no pace up the front.
No.
And it needs the team. Cassima Harris has brought us something on the left-hand side. Murphy started off looking as though he was going to be the same when I saw him against Barnsley, but apparently Murphy's dropped off a little bit. For Jordan Rhodes, Huddersfield had two great wingers. Two great wingers supplying the balls that he requires. Sheffield Wednesday haven't had those wingers for Jordan Rhodes. I mean, they bought him £8, £9, £10 million, but didn't have wide players. It was a wrong thing to do.
But now with Harris, and if Murphy's has been disappointing. But I thought the other night, first half, I thought it was beginning to.
Well, I didn't see the game, so I can't comment. I just read the comments from supporters now and again. But Jordan Rhodes, he's got something in him that scores goals. But unfortunately, the last few managers haven't selected him. No.
Sheffield United against Liverpool. Prospects for this? Well, it's easy for people to sit back and say, well, it's Liverpool will win, etc. It's not necessarily going to be that straightforward.
No, it's going to be interesting how they approach it. Obviously Everton last week, there's been much written about the overlapping centre-backs, but it was a back five for most of the game, and I'd imagine it'll be pretty similar in this one because the players that Liverpool have got can just rip you apart. It can happen. Norwich beat Manchester City. It's not even a fortnight ago now. Will lightning strike twice? I don't know. The thing for me, I know Chris won't agree with this, Chris Wilder, but to me it's a free hit now because of the Everton game. That Everton game. If United get 38 points this season, they'll stay up. It's 1 point a game. If you stay on that curve, so now even if they lose on Saturday, it's 8 from 7.
Yeah,
and that's a good start.
Nobody's going to be overcritical of a home defeat to Liverpool, but in terms of approach, you just don't know. But it's inherent in Sheffield United that they've been positive, and that's what's got them the progress over 3 years. They've got to look to try and hurt Liverpool if they can. I know what you're saying about being vulnerable if you commit too many players forward, but it's that element of being so positive that's got them where they are.
It's going to be interesting to me because the YP, I'd cover all the Yorkshire teams when they got in the Premier League, and Huddersfield came up, David Wagner saying we're going to do the gegenpressing, we're going to stick to how we got promoted. And they did the first 6 games, they got 9 points, but then they played Tottenham. It was the same weekend, actually, the last Saturday in September. They were 3-0 down after 20 minutes, and everything changed after that. And I spoke to David Wagner the following, somebody admitted it. He says, we were just too wide open. And after that, it was all, there's no gegenpressing anymore. It was just, just stay deep, we'll try and hit them on the break. And everything changed because it's difficult for a manager. If you lose, if it ended up being 4-0, but it could have been 5, 6, 7.
How do you see it? I mean, there's a temptation, I suppose, that we'll get everybody behind the ball, we'll just frustrate Liverpool, or do you think we'll surprise them? We'll take the game to them?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I don't think it can be cavalier, but I think you watch them every Sunday on the TV, the big games, and you see all these clubs sitting back, and then eventually Man City break them down, Tottenham break them down, Liverpool break them down, and you lose.
So what's the point?
So what's the point? That's my thing. I think Sheffield United, with the crowd behind them, with the players they've got, with the passion and enthusiasm, Liverpool, for me, are not the greatest side at the back. I don't think the keeper at the moment is the greatest goalkeeper. I think that if you get at him, I know Van Dijk is good, but I think the others aren't the greatest defenders in the Premier League, and I think that's Sheffield United's best chance. I think is to have a go at them. I mean, I remember last season, or was it the season before, my mate Paul Cook at Wigan played Manchester City in the FA Cup and went for them. And okay, it was their lucky day in certain instances, but they beat them 1-0.
Yeah.
And I think
I agree with you as a layman. Yeah.
And I think if you go out and set your start, Norwich went out and tried to pass the ball against City, scored 3 or 4 goals on the night. They are vulnerable, these teams. If you sit back and you just think for 90 minutes we're going to sit back, they will create chances and score.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually. Give your team a go. You know the main games that you've got to win. Sheffield United's got to be beating the middle of the table teams, the teams that'll be around the bottom. You've got to pick your points up. Saturday's game against Liverpool is why they're there. It's why the fans are there, why the team's there, why the club's there. You want to be playing Liverpool's, Manchester City's and Manchester United's. It's a great day for them, and I think them players will raise the game, and I would not be surprised if Sheffield United beat them. I wouldn't be surprised.
Fingers crossed, let's hope so, I do.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sheffield United get something from the game. Yeah, there we are.
Because that's the difference. Huddersfield were happy to lose 1-0, 2-0. They took it the ultimate practical way. And obviously it worked the first season, the second season was an absolute disaster.
Then the players get into a mould of losing games.
Middlesbrough,
and have that fear.
Middlesbrough, Sheffield Wednesday, would you like to call that one while you're here?
I don't know, but I mean Middlesbrough over the last 5-6 years, draw, boring football, nothing exciting, and I think the games are not exciting when Middlesbrough are playing. I think Sheffield Wednesday's got a good chance of getting something there against them. Obviously Garry would like to go there and beat them for obvious reasons, but I think there's a chance, there's an opportunity of getting something at Middlesbrough on Saturday. Once again, those are the type of games that Sheffield Wednesday need to start winning.
Right, and just finally, I was going to touch on this the last time you came in when we were talking about your new departure at Wakefield AFC. When I say departure, I don't mean that's...
I'm 61 now, Alan. I'm going down there.
Where you're coach and do everything at Wakefield. Is it Wakefield AFC or the
Wakefield
other way?
AFC.
Wakefield AFC.
Yeah.
This is quite novel. I mean, you're teamed up with Wakefield Trinity, the rugby league team.
Yes.
Stadium's being built.
Yeah.
And you've got this link with university education.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's educational base for players to come in who've got BTEC 3, come in, do a sports degree study, whilst they're doing that, training Monday to Friday and playing in the Sheffield County Senior Premier League. And I must say, it's refreshing to see, for me, lads they're not all being chosen on ability, but to seeing them improve. Results are coming good now. I'm seeing the players gel. It's the first time they've been together, and for me, and as I said earlier, being all around the country at all the top clubs, all the small clubs, and all that, to come back to grassroots football, it's refreshing. As we talked about Epworth earlier and Swinton that we played Penistone. Penistone's got a great setup out there, and it's great to meet these people and talk to them about football and see young players and young talent and the enthusiasm, and 1 or 2 older players that are playing on the Saturday afternoons for the love of the game. It's great, and I'm enjoying it, and I've always enjoyed coaching. I think I definitely retired too early from coaching and management. I should have stayed in there longer because it's my forte and it's what I enjoy.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Chris. We've enjoyed, as ever, your company here this evening. That show's gone so quickly. And Richard Sutcliffe as well. Great.
Thank you. Cheers.
Very distinguished debut, sir. We'll resume our discussions across the road, shall we, over at Pint?
Sounds good.
1 or 2 other colleagues joining us there. Thanks ever so much for your company. If you missed, it's a repeat at 11 p.m. tonight. It will as ever be on my YouTube channel. See you very soon. Bye-bye now. Bye.